This is a special report from About Space Today.
Welcome to Special Report. I'm David Denault. This afternoon, NASA held a media briefing on the status of the crew flight test. Ken Bowersox, Associate NASA Administrator, started the briefing.
We don't have any major announcements today, but we did want to spend some time with you going through our process for how we make flight readiness decisions and to give you a little bit of status information. Our technical experts are all busy diving deeply into all the data that's been generated over the past few weeks, going through the feedback of new propulsion system experts that have been brought in, looking at planning for our return options, and preparing for some decision points that are ahead at the program control board and eventually a flight readiness review. If we have more time or an especially critical issue, we can go back and revisit some of that lower level program and organizational board process and come back to another flight readiness review. And in this case, we've got time, and it's a fairly major discussion to decide about whether or not we're going to have crew on board Starliner for return. So we're anticipating another flight readiness review meeting after the programs have had a chance to meet. The timing for those meetings, we're expecting that the data analysis will be ready for a program board middle to end of next week, and that would be ready for a flight readiness review around the end of next week, potentially beginning of the following week. We've got time available before we bring Starliner home, and we want to use that time wisely. Right now, Butch and Sonny are well engaged on board the International Space Station. I know if I was in their position, I'd be really happy to be there, and I'd be happy to have the extra time. It's great to be there, enjoying the environment, eating that great space food, and being able to look out the window. So I know that they're making the best of this time, but I'm sure they're eager for a decision just like the rest of us, and when we have that, we will be sure to get together with the rest of you and share that information.
And there were a number of questions from the media about concerns about safely returning.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Marcia Smith with SpacePolicyOnline.com.
Thank you so much for taking my question. I think it's mostly for Ken, but also for Russ. And I'm just wondering if both of you could think back to the time of Columbia, and I'm sure there are folks there still from the time of Challenger, and talk about how this process has evolved from what happened with those tragedies. How do you see all of this playing out differently than it might have played out in the past?
Go ahead, Russ. You want to go first?
Yeah, I'll start and then pass it over to you. I really do feel like two things that I feel like I'll point to, and one of them is kind of how I started. You know, we did not have the governance structure that we have today with the technical authorities. So at that time, the program managers pretty much had near unilateral decision making, and so if there were views that maybe a path we were taking was not correct, there was really no strong additional authority to step in and say, wait a minute. And then I think the other thing is, you know, and I'll say for me personally, I've been very hyper-focused lately on this concept of combating organizational silence. If you look at both, unfortunately, Challenger and Columbia, you know, there you could see cases where people had the right data or a valid position to put forward, but the environment just didn't allow it. And I think we've worked a lot harder these days in sensitizing everyone to making sure that we have the right environment for people with different positions can bring them forward. I recognize that may mean at times we don't move very fast because we're getting everything out, and I think you can kind of see that at play here. where I think some people were like, hey, let's get on with it. But it really is part of that lesson that we learned is you need to have equivalent technical authorities outside of the program, and we need to be very careful to make sure that everybody's perspective is shared.
Rush DeLuce, NASA Safety Office. Another question: has NASA talked with the crew of Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams on returning in Starliner?
Our next question is from Micah Maidenberg with the Wall Street Journal.
Thank you. This is for perhaps Joe Acaba. Has Butch and Sonny specifically been asked about whether they would do the nominal Starliner return, given the data that has been collected and the understanding of risk? If they have, what was their response, and how does that response weigh in with the broader decision-making at NASA about whether to go with Starliner or Crew Dragon? And if they haven't been asked, will they be asked at some point? Thanks a lot.
So I've spoken, like I said, quite a bit with Butch and Sonny. They are receiving a lot of information that we are reviewing here on the ground. I do ask for their opinion, but when I talk to them, they are relying on us on the ground to analyze the data and to come up with a decision. And they will do what we ask them to do, and that's their job as astronauts.
Okay, so they've never stated a preference or view about the nominal return plan, or?
Yeah, I would just say this is not really a preference thing. They are going to wait for us to analyze the data and to come up with a decision. And again, they will do what we ask them to do.
The final results of this afternoon's briefing is wait another week or two. However, as of last weekend, Boeing says their spacecraft is safe and wants to bring home Butch and Sonny on Starliner. I'm David Denault.
This has been a special report from About Space Today.